Some of you may recognize that prayer. I used it, I don't know, a month or so ago. But I love it, and it's perfectly, absolutely appropriate for today's message. Today we are finishing up our discussion of the book called The Sacred Art of Loving Kindness by Rabbi Rami Shapiro. We've talked about numerous ways to practice this soul art of loving kindness and how to make it part of who we are, so that we wake up each morning with our hearts set on being kind and loving to everyone that we meet. I think it's particularly good to be wrapping up this discussion since next week we're headed into the celebration of the birth of our master teacher Jesus, who was all about this, right? And the consciousness that he brought to the planet was one of loving kindness. All of the great spiritual teachers who've written and been memorialized, including Jesus, have taught that loving kindness is the way to enlightened living. That it is the way that we move into an acknowledgement every single day that God is and that we are of that. I also think it's the natural step of our evolution on the earth as spiritual beings having human experiences together as individuals, but also as a species. I got to thinking about this because I love to think about evolution and how it works and why it works and how did we come about, us odd beings called humans. You know, and in the beginning, our pre-human ancestors just sort of roamed around and they got food wherever they were, and they moved from place to place, and they didn't think about themselves very much. But as our founder, Ernest Holmes, noted, one day some of them stood up and realized that they could think. They had become self-conscious. Spirit had become conscious of itself as human beings. And all that self-consciousness, consciousness of self, consciousness of consciousness, brought about a whole bunch of stuff that didn't exist before, or at least not to this extent. Some of it was great, like the ability to look into the future and make plans, the ability to create language so you could convey information from generation to generation, the ability to grow crops and store them. It also brought some really challenging things, like all the ego contortions that we still go through today. Like the whole idea that you could control the food supply and therefore have power over other people. Like the idea that you could own another person, which was prevalent worldwide for a very long time. Like all those contortions of ego that we went through as a species and that we still go through starting from the time we're born, all of our lives. And so evolution continued as mankind, as humankind, nations started to war with each other over the food and the land and the riches and the power. People started to think more about what is this creative spark that seems to be everywhere in the universe, and how did we come to be, and what is our relationship with it? And they started to think about those things a little bit differently, because in the beginning, of course, the gods were the forces of nature. If you didn't do the right thing in the right order, you might get struck by a bolt of lightning because it happened that one time, and so it might happen again. There was a new idea that somehow we were related to this power outside ourselves, and evolution continued and continued, but the ego contortions also continued, and they're still going on, right? I mean, we still all go through them all the time. But eventually, humankind, I think, had evolved to the point where a series of teachers like Buddha and Jesus and Muhammad and others could be heard by a few people. Not many, but a few. They could come and do their teaching, and there were a few people who understood what they were saying about our relationship to the universe, about how to treat other people, about how to treat life in general, about how to work with the ego so that it doesn't control us. And these original spiritual giants were followed by great teachers who took their words and continue to make use of them and continue to try to make sense of them to more and more and more people. We have incredible teachers available to us today, as we always have, but they're more available now than they ever have been before, like Thich Nhat Hanh and Andrew Harvey and Pema Chodron and Hossein Nasr and Marianne Williamson and Rabbi Rami Shapiro and others. They're all amazing, amazing teachers. And I was thinking that there are a lot of things that all of these teachers have in common, but there are two, for today's purposes, that are really clear. The first one is, of course, that the change in the world, it mirrors the change in us, and the change in us comes when we do the work, which is always inside ourselves. And the second change is that the way to be in the outward world, how to be joyful and happy and free in the outer world, is to be loving and to be kind. They all say that. They all say that. To make it our way of life, instead of all of the ego contortions having primacy of place, I guess I'd say. So I think that we have evolved to the point where more and more and more of us are doing the inner work. We're understanding that it's not out there, it's all in here. And that we're choosing a different way of being. We're trying to find a way to be loving kindness in the world. We're trying to find a way to really be the world we want to see, because we're beginning to understand more and more that as above, so below, as within, so without, all of those things. We create it here first. And then if we act that way in the world, we start to see it out here as well. I'm hoping that there's enough of us that we can sort of break through this logjam of mistrust and judgment and greed and fear, which is the root of all of it, that seems to be the condition in the world. But I see evidence of that all around me, all the time. I see evidence that more and more and more people are understanding. For example, yesterday was the anniversary of a terrible, terrible day in our history, when somebody walked into a little school and killed 20 kids and 6 teachers. And the thing that the parents said, the parents of those kids, they said, "We want you to go out and do acts of kindness in memory of our kids." I thought that was fabulous. You know, I know some people who might not feel that way. They would be still so angry that it had happened to their children. But these people were saying, go out and be kind to one another. And that made me really hopeful. Really hopeful. There's, I just see it all around me that more and more people are realizing that to go to meet whatever shows up with love and kindness is more powerful than to meet it with fear and reaction and judgment and all of that stuff. Rabbi Shapiro in his book has an invitation for all of us. The last chapter of the book is called An Invitation to Become a Hidden Saint. And it begins with a quote from Rabbi Hillel, who was a great hero in Judaism. And the quote goes like this: "In places where there is no mensch, be a mensch. A mensch is a stand-up guy. A mensch is a stand-up gal. A mensch is someone who does for others what can be done to help them. A mensch is someone who practices the sacred art of loving kindness as a way of life." According to the Talmud, which is a series of rabbinical discussions on the Bible, the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, according to the Talmud, there are 36 mensches on the planet at all times. Because if there weren't those 36, humanity would implode because of selfishness and anger and greed and ignorance. The loving kindness that the 36 mensches generate keeps that from happening. Which reminds me of Margaret Mead's statement. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. 36, not many, right? Are there really 36? Of course not. It's a number that's chosen for symbolic meaning. 36 is 2 times 18. 18 is the Hebrew cipher for life. So a mensch lives life for him or herself and life for another. That's 2 lives. So there's 36 of them. Rabbi Shapiro points out that once you undertake this idea of living from loving kindness, you become one of them. You become one of the 36, the mensches who keep the world from imploding. And they have a special name in Hebrew, Lamed Vavniks, Lamed Vavnik, hidden saints. And of course, no one can be a saint all the time, not even those 36. Even Jesus had bad days. Buddha had bad days. Everybody has bad days. We have days where we get up and say, I don't want to see anybody because I can't be loving today. Sometimes we have to say that to our spouses, right? Pardon me, I love you, but I don't like you today. I'm going in my room, right? So some days we just can't be that. But as long as we're here in human form and having bad days, it's important also to recognize that there's something in us that never has a bad day. There's something in us that is always shining, that's always glowing, that's always bright, that's always trying to move us back into alignment with the truth of ourselves as soon as we get over the bad mood. And then it's our turn to be one of the 36. Then it's our turn to go into our day purposefully thinking I'm going to be loving and kind, to increase the vibration of the world, to make life easier for people that I meet. And that's why we've spent the last couple of months talking about ways to do that, ways to be more loving, ways to see more lovingly in the world. And I want to make something really clear. When you have a bad day, it means you get to drop out for that day. You have to come back. You have to come back into the ranks of mensch, because why risk it? I mean, if there's only 36, what would happen if all 36 had a bad day on the same day? You don't want to take that risk, right? So we come back to be a mensch whenever we can, whenever we're able. And I'm saying better not to take the risk, only partly tongue-in-cheek. It's better not to take the risk for a whole bunch of reasons. One is that, which is what this whole idea of 36 hidden saints is trying to tell us. It helps the world become a better place. But you know what? It's also really good for us, personally, physically, mentally, and spiritually. There's a story in the rabbi's book about a Muslim man who comes across a dog who is obviously has been without water for a very long time. And there's a well nearby, so he takes off his shoe, dips it in the well, and gives the dog some water. And someone asked the prophet, well, after the guy gave the dog the water, God sent him a message forgiving him of all of his transgressions. And someone asked the prophet, does that mean we're rewarded for kindness to animals? And the prophet replied, there's a reward for kindness to every living thing, any living thing. The reward is here and now, though. It's not that we're forgiven in some life after we die or at some later time. It's here and now. Loving kindness causes oxytocin to be released in the body. Oxytocin is the love hormone. But what oxytocin does is cause another chemical to be released, which decreases blood pressure. So when you're kind, you're decreasing your blood pressure. It's always a good thing to do. And it also stimulates the vagus nerve, which controls inflammation in the body. So the more loving you are and the kinder you are, the less inflammation you have in your body, which means the slower you age. So loving kindness is very good for us physically. It also makes for way better relationships, as I'm sure you know. So it creates better relationships. And it reduces our stress levels and it reduces our pain. And the best thing about it is it's contagious as all get out. When you're loving and kind, other people catch it from you. How good is that? It's wonderful. You've probably seen those videos that are all over where you have one person doing a nice thing and that person goes, the recipient says, wow. And then they go and do something nice and then, it cascades. And so figure you meet however many people you meet in a day and you touch each one of them with kindness and they go off and touch somebody else with kindness and you've created this monumental cascade of loving kindness. It's a wonderful thing. And it's so easy to do. We have worldly, tangible benefits in body and mind and soul, and the latter is the most important. Learning to live from loving kindness, I think, and the teachers taught, is one of the things we're here to do on this earth. It's one of the things we're here to, it's one of the things our soul yearns for us to do, is learn how to be more loving and more kind in our day-to-day life. And our souls begin to blossom, and they become more powerful and more beautiful and deeper and more filled with light. So the rabbi ends the book with an invitation to each of us to join the Lamed Vav Society. It's a secret society of hidden saints who dedicate themselves to the sacred soul art of loving kindness. And he says, of course they're hidden, so I can't prove that they exist, but I'm going to invite you anyway. So we're all invited, and the first requirement is that we practice the sacred art of loving kindness every day. We choose to focus every day on one of the 13 attributes that we've talked about. Seeing God in ourselves, seeing God in others, realizing the divinity, cultivating creativity, engendering compassion in ourselves, finding grace, cultivating equanimity so that whatever happens, we don't get ruffled, forgiving willfulness, forgiving error, forgiving iniquity, and cleansing ourselves of delusion. Those are the 13 practices. Forgiveness, I think I was gone, and some of it we skipped over, but that's what we're going to talk about next week. Just to focus on one of those attributes, like how am I engendering compassion in myself today? The second requirement for membership is to select one day per week to really take on the mantle of hidden saint. On that day, to look for ways to be of service to our community, to other people, in a manner that cultivates loving kindness. There's a fabulous opportunity right here to do just that with our compassionate care group. They are the group that is loving kindness, and they would welcome your participation. They stay in touch with people. They provide food when people are sick or just came home from the hospital. They do all sorts of just loving things. And so if you are interested in participating, you can talk with Judy Nussmacher or with me or call the office. It's a great way to really practice loving kindness. You could also just consciously look for opportunities to put somebody else first, even if it messes up your schedule a little bit. For example, let someone in line in the grocery store, somebody who only has one item. Let somebody in traffic. The rules are, if somebody lets you in traffic, you're supposed to wave. And I always do, and I always notice when I let someone in and they don't. Because for me, it's just a little, I am not the most important driver on the road, and I can take that. What does it take? Half a second, 1 second, 2 seconds to let somebody in front of me. I don't always do it because sometimes I have bad days too. But I really try consciously to let people in if they're trying to get into the traffic and there isn't a break. Hold the door open for somebody. Smile at everybody. Wish someone Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays or whatever is appropriate for you. Just to do these little loving things as a way of life. Not just once a week, but as a way of life. To set that intention. The third requirement is to recruit people by teaching them what it feels like to receive loving kindness. Teach your kids and grandkids how amazing a blessing comes to us when we're kind to people. If you're a school teacher, have your kids pick a day of the week to be kind and then come back and report about it to the rest of the class. There are all sorts of ways to teach people a little bit more about loving kindness simply by being it. By being it. I know our culture tells us to mind our own business. There was a bullying video I saw the other day that was really interesting. These college kids decided that they were going to do an experiment, and the big one was going to bully the little one on a college campus just to see what people would do. And they did it in front of all sorts of people, hundreds of people. 3 people stopped. The rest of them got up and ran away, moved away from this situation. One of them pulled out a video camera and started filming, which broke it up instantly because who wants to be caught on tape being a bully? The other two who stopped it were little tiny women. And they just walked up and said, "Stop it!" And the bully stopped. Because bullies work that way. If you just tell them to stop and you're standing there looking at them, they won't keep bullying. My point is that our society has taught us to mind our own business, to turn the other way and take our stuff and leave and let the violence or the bullying keep going on. Why, I don't know. I think it's time to stop minding our own business and start loving on each other more. I think it's time for us to climb out of our shells of fear and isolation and worry and stress and start sprinkling kindness wherever we go. I think it's time to start, that whole idea about seeing the divinity in another and in ourselves and reaching toward it with our hearts, to start sharing our joy with each other, not just our yuck. Start sharing our happiness and our joy and our good stuff. I think we've evolved to the point where we might be capable of that, don't you? I really do. I really do. Albert Schweitzer wrote a lot of great things, but this one quote really got me. He said, "Constant kindness can accomplish much. As the sun makes ice melt, kindness causes misunderstanding, mistrust, and hostility to evaporate." It's really true. It's really true. So sign up. Enroll in this society of hidden saints. Become a Lamed Vavnik. Set your intention that you're going to be kind and loving in every possible situation, every day, everywhere, as much as you can, and forgive yourself when you have a bad day. It's okay. We all do. Just last night, as I was getting ready to turn off my computer, I found this quote from Clarissa Pinkola Estes. She wrote Women Who Run with Wolves and Other Things. She's an amazing woman. And it was so perfect. I'm going to close with it. She said, we are needed. That's all we can know. Ours is not the task of fixing the entire world all at once. Thank you, God. But of stretching out to mend the part of the world that is within our reach. Any small, calm thing that one soul can do to help another soul, to assist some portion of this poor suffering world, will help immensely. It is not given to us to know which acts, or by whom, will cause the critical mass to tip toward an enduring good. The good words we say and the good words we do are not ours. They are the words and deeds of the one who sent us here. In that spirit, I hope you will write this on your wall. When a great ship is in harbor and moored, it is safe. There can be no doubt. But that is not what great ships are built for. So have no doubt about yourself. Everybody in this room is one of those great ships. Everybody in this room is one of those hidden saints, out moving on this great sea of life and doing the deeds of the one who brought us here. So join me right now in simply allowing your awareness to become still and peaceful. Allowing your heart to expand, filling up your whole being with love. We have, closer than our breath, this source of love that can fill every part of us all the time, that can stop the incessant contortions of ego and thinking and replace them with a desire simply to be the words, the hands, the acts of the one who brought us here, with a desire to simply love the world and ourselves as best we can, with a peace that passes understanding, and with a reminder that we are connected with the same power that created the universe, so that all that we could ever need is at our disposal. All the love we could ever dispense, infinite love, is at our disposal. All of the wisdom we could ever need to decide what action to take is at our disposal, because we are one with it. We are one with it, each one of us, a manifestation of that same power and that same presence and wisdom and love. And so I know that each one of us finds new, bigger ways to be love, to be kindness, to be that which we want to see happen in the world. Tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that, and we just continue in this great expansion of love, never knowing when the balance will tip, but realizing it matters not. It matters not. What matters is how we extend ourselves in our lives, touching those around us, which makes them reach out and touch others, which makes them reach out and touch others, until we fill this planet with love and peace and joy and kinship. And I know this to be the truth of who we are and why we exist in this world. And so I just say thank you. I just say thank you for this life, this heart, this community of infinite beings who come together to learn how to love more, to learn how to extend ourselves more fully into this universe as beings of love and light. Thank you for this time we have had together this morning. Thank you for all of it. Yes, even the contortions of ego, as there is a lesson to be learned there too. And in thanksgiving, I release these words knowing that they never come back to me void, but the universe always says yes and returns to me as I believe. And so we just let it be, and we anchor and acknowledge it by saying together, and so it is.
I am remembering who I am. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering. I am remembering who I am. 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 I am remembering who I am.
May we never, never forget who we are. We now have an opportunity to express our gratitude for this life by entering into its flowing stream. We have an opportunity to express our gratitude for this spiritual community by supporting it. We're here every Sunday and every day with services and classes and group meetings and all of that. And we're here because you could support us. So I just want to say thank you. And I want to invite you to allow your being to be filled up with gratitude for this life. No matter what. No matter what, it is God in expression. And to take your gift in your hands or in your heart and to bless it on its way. Please repeat after me. My gift goes forth to bless and to prosper.
My gift goes forth to bless and to prosper.
It does its good and perfect work.
It does its good and perfect work.
And returns to me multiplied abundantly.
Returns to me multiplied abundantly.
I am grateful.
I am grateful.
And so it is.
So it is.